Mayor Mark Sukup.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins.
Here.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson.
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake.
Here.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Here.
Is there any amendments? All right, public comment, Melissa? It's okay.
Yes.
And see, sooner there's a little face there. If you push it, it'll turn on the mic. There it goes.
There it is. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Suna Thomas, and I'm representing Harmony Neighborhood Community, which includes the residents and the members of the club. For the past 5 years, United in Harmony, we have raised over the holidays over $100,000 for local nonprofits. These include as 337 bikes for Realities for Children, 800 brand new coats for the homeless group, food drive, blood drive, 140th Fighter Wing. We showed them our gratitude by raising funds for them. Respite care and also Declutter, D-Good, which it was an effort to stop sex trafficking. The pandemic has made us aware of the critical need and the importance of our frontline personnel, medical personnel. And I think we all agree that we are all grateful. We all appreciate the sacrifices that they make daily. I come to you today, besides just saying thank you, I'm the type of person that shows through actions along with the words. So our fundraiser this year is to honor and pay tribute to the frontline personnel. How? Through working with Front Range Community College, we will be working together to honor these nurses, EMTs, and paramedics by raising scholarship funds for future paramedics, EMTs, and nurses. What better way to honor them than to give scholarships in their in tribute to their work? The blessing is that everybody has appreciated this. It's such a big common cause at Harmony. 60 elves of the block or volunteers are not here. They're with me and in thought and reaching out to you guys. If I were to ask you guys a quick question, if I knew of an investment that would double the impact immediately, how many of you raise of hands that you would say, yes, count me in? Can I see hands? It's a sure bet. You know, it's not like land in Florida, but it's a sure bet. Well, I have that. Front Range Community College, partnering with them, I have a donor who will match up to $50,000, dollar per dollar, our effort in raising funds for these students. So we can raise the potential of $100,000 just in one fundraiser. So I'm here because we could do it at Harmony, our group, we could make efforts, but why not work together, reach across to Timnath Ranch, Saratoga Falls, Wild Wing, these other local communities in Timnath, and make our fundraiser go further. Imagine the holiday magic that we can create with your support. What is that support I'm asking for? Aaron, you wrote an article about how the town of Timnath gives. I'd love to have a social way of reaching out to them in terms of either putting it on the Facebook page, on your website, like a banner, an article with a direct link. Right now, it's everything is tax deductible, dollar per dollar. And so is there a way that we can work together with the town of Timnath and reach out to more people and let it not just be the gift of love fundraiser from Harmony, but United in Harmony, we reach out to all these other neighborhoods. So I'm asking here for you guys for support in that. And also, since you heard it's matching, your investment goes the extra mile, donations are welcome.
Great, thanks, Suna.
I have flyers as well for you guys, so
You could cut, you can,
Pass it
go
out?
ahead. You can come up and
Okay.
just drop them here, or Matt will grab it from you.
thank you for your time.
Thanks, Suna. Anybody else, Melissa?
Lana Pink.
Hello, my name is Lana Pink. I live in Wild Wings. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I want to talk to you about the frenetic growth and the rising taxes in Timnath. And I'm going to read from you an email that my Wild Wing friend and neighbor wrote. Each year I see the town council more or less automatically approve the tax mill levy for the next year. Please give some thought when doing this year. I would suggest giving the residents a break and approving a zero mill levy for 2021. The property tax income to the town is minuscule compared to the rest of the budget. The town income from all sources keeps rising to the point that I don't even think taxpayers need to be paying property tax. Each election, the incumbent candidates brag about all the projects they passed for the town. Why not add, I lowered the property tax to your bragging rights? It seems that each year the council assumes property tax income will be there and searches for ways to spend the money. I urge you to not look for ways to spend that very small amount. The right to impose the tax will be there in future years if needed. We are burdened with all kinds of taxes, our Metro District taxes being the biggest burden. Please give us a break and lower the property tax mill levy to zero for 2021. I was looking at the agenda for tonight, and there's an item on the agenda called the Regional Improvement Mill Levy. Is this a backdoor way to increase property taxes for residents? If so, it goes against the spirit of the Tabor Initiative. If more taxes are actually needed, which I doubt, then it should be brought to the voters in a referendum. I should remind you, with the last attempt to raise taxes, a sales tax increase was soundly defeated by the residents, even though most of that tax would be paid by outsiders. The best way to solve infrastructure problems in the town is to control growth. The best way to control growth is to stop approving metro districts. Make the developers take the financial risk of their projects, as is the case in most states. I know not of a single Timnath resident who thinks we need more subdivisions. Stop approving metro districts and the need for a regional improvement mill levy will be solved. Thank you for considering this, and thank you for your service on the council.
Thanks, Lana.
You're welcome.
We will be talking about a couple of items you brought up the rest of this meeting.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else, Melissa?
That's it for public comment that I'm aware of. Did
Anybody
anybody
else for
want to
public
speak
comment?
on a non-agenda item that I didn't get?
All right. Consent agenda payables. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I recuse myself from that one. Consent agenda setting public hearings. Do I have, if there's no discussion, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda other, approval of the special town meeting, approval of the town council meetings of October 27th, and resolution number 66, series 2020, regarding approval of the independent contractor agreement for 1 year. Did you want to talk about that? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
goes approved. Reports, council, anybody have a report?
I have one quick
Go
one.
ahead, yeah.
I just want to let the council know that we had a meeting with the PROS Committee, Park Recreation Open Space Trails Committee, and we talked quite a bit about the reservoir. The whole conversation was on the reservoir. It ended up being a 3-hour meeting, but we got a lot of different items sort of hashed through from all the different stakeholders that are in that meeting, and we will have some policy recommendations coming forward next month in December.
Awesome, thanks. Lisa, Rick. So I'd like to come back to Suna's suggestion and sort of take a look at the council. I think what she's asking for is in our Facebook that we have a banner put on discussing this fundraiser, and also on our website a link where someone can donate to this. And before I go that way, Ashley, can we put on a link to directly donate? Okay, so it looks like we could do it. Comments? Lisa?
I think it's great.
I do too. I think that's great that you want to open this up to the rest of Timnath. And I'm sure, as we've found in the past, that you'll find the rest of the Timnathians to be very interested in supporting something like this. So thanks for bringing it forward.
Brett?
I'll just comment that I think it's a good role for the town to fill to facilitate these relationships and working together and chances to serve together. So yeah, I support it too.
So Suna, you see Ashley back there. She will help you get it on the website for us. And you also take care of the Facebook too, don't you, Ashley? So Suna, if you could get with her and you can get both of those accomplished. You good?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Go ahead, step up there. I can't, you're soft spoken.
I really appreciate it. This is something we could do together. And this is one way to end 2020 on a better note than we started out with. I think you'll all agree. I would love for you guys to share it and don't, individually donate there. We lead by example, and let's do it through our actions. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Suna. Suna's,
Mr. Mayor, that might be something that we're redoing the website, that we put a section in there so the projects like this that are taking place in the community, there's a place where they can contact us, and we've built into the system where people can see what's going on.
okay, good. We are lucky and fortunate that John Kafalis is here to give a county commissioner report. And before you start, John, I, on behalf of the entire council here, would like to give you our heartfelt thank you for getting the IGA agreement through with your leadership. We got done with an agreement that took over 9 years to get done, and we totally appreciate all the effort that you put in your leadership there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your kind words.
You bet.
So thank you for the opportunity to be here before the Timnath Town Council. It's been difficult to actually meet with folks other than Zoom, and I'm sure we're all just continuing to enjoy our Zoom meetings. So I really do appreciate this opportunity. I look forward to future opportunities next year. We hope that things will be different, but that we can continue to build the relationships and find other ways to work together. So with regard to the community report, I believe it was on your, in your packet, and hopefully you had a chance to review the digital version. Provided a hard copy for you to refer to. I think what I'd like to do today, I'll be brief, but I'd like to highlight some of the things that are in the report, and it kind of gives a good overview. And I do have copies for folks if folks in the audience are interested. But it does give a good overview of how the county government, Larimer County government, is organized in terms of the 5 service areas. But just to kind of highlight some things, and then I'd like to answer any questions that you may have, updated items in relation to what is what's in the report. So I'd also like to mention that we do have it in Spanish, the first time ever, Informe de la Comunidad, and I have some hard copies of that if folks are interested. But with that said, this is our 2019-20 community report. We do this every year, and the goal is to summarize and provide some highlights of what the county has accomplished in the 5 service areas, to provide some data and also to provide access to, folks have questions where they can ask those questions and where they can further engage. Looking at the document, you can see that the first area that is referenced is the community planning infrastructure and resources service area. And that's basically within that service area, you have things like community development, and it's been great to work with folks like Matt and the town manager and Wes regarding the IGA that we worked hard to achieve. So you have community planning, infrastructure, and resources, and you can see the list of different departments: building inspections, land use planning, the ranch, et cetera. And then you can see some of the highlights. So for example, with the ranch, if you're not aware, we are making good progress in the updated ranch master plan and implementation. And so we are making progress, and there should be some construction activity in the subsequent year. I'm happy to answer more questions there. Regarding solid waste management, you can see some of the numbers there in terms of cubic yards of green waste processed, the amount of recycling, pounds of recycling collected, and how many folks have visited the Larimer County landfill. I'm sure you're aware that the current landfill, which was built back in the 1960s, is set to reach its capacity. It changes a lot, and things like the Cameron Peak wildfire with all sorts of fire debris don't help. But I think we're looking at maybe 2024, 2023, where it will reach its capacity, and ultimately the landfill will close. And because of that, primarily because of that, we are in the process as one of the outcomes of the Northern Colorado Watershed Coalition, which includes the county and which includes all the various municipalities. We are moving forward with the new landfill, which will be located on county land north of Wellington, sort of near the intersection of County Road 9 and Al Canyon Road. So about 5 or some odd miles north of the town of Wellington. So that is moving forward. But in the meantime, at the current landfill on the Trilby, on the south end of the property, we will be doing actually a virtual, just gotta love those virtual meetings, but a groundbreaking for what's referred to as the transfer station. And again, I think you folks know that we are building a transfer station so residents can bring their solid waste to that transfer station. It'll be a state of the art, but ultimately, once the new landfill is built, then commercial collectors would be transferring waste. And the goal of this whole project is, among other things, we need a new landfill, but the goal is to divert and recycle at least 40% of the solid waste materials. So that project is moving forward. And then within the community planning, infrastructure, and resources, we have our Department of Natural Resources. And one of the things that's really exciting is the River Bluffs restoration project, which is very close. And I was really glad to be able to see that. So that's one of the service areas. A second service area that you see in the community report is public records and information services. That includes things like the county treasurer, the county assessor, and certainly the clerk and recorder, where folks go to get their vehicle licensing either in person or online. The elections division is within the clerk and recorder's office, and I'm sure you all noticed we had a very interesting election recently. Okay, I was just trying to get a little bit of a reaction there. But to the credit of our clerk and recorder, Angela Myers, I mean, she is extraordinary. You know, we basically had some of the highest turnout in terms of the election. And I believe we were at 89% turnout of active registered voters. In other words, these are folks, not necessarily the eligible voters, but these are folks that are active and therefore received a mail-in ballot. So public records, information and services. The next item, the next service area is strategic leadership and administrative services. And again, that's mostly internal stuff. Our budgeting department, our information technology department, fleet services, facilities, and all of that. And again, I can answer questions in those areas if you'd like. One of the things that I think is relevant, and it's in somewhat close proximity to the IGA area that we just developed with the town of Timnath with information technology. We just approved a public-private partnership in our broadband strategic initiative. So we are looking at expanding high-speed internet in working in partnership with Front Range Internet. They have some technology. They have a tower that's on a farm near Cobb Lake, and we're going to work with them to improve some of that technology and get high-speed internet out to some identified areas, and also provide some cost sharing or subsidy for folks who are low income who may not be able to afford high-speed internet that would allow their kids to do online learning. So in my view, that's very exciting. The fourth area is public safety. And of course, that includes the Larimer County Sheriff's Office, the detention center, the jail, but it also includes a lot of work that we're doing in our criminal justice system related to alternative sentencing, community corrections, pretrial services. So that is taking place, and you're probably aware that we began construction on a upgrade of the Larimer County Jail and an expansion of the beds. And again, I'm happy to answer questions there. So public safety services, of course, the Sheriff's Office has been on the front lines regarding the wildfire, the Cameron Peak fire, and certainly the Thompson zone of the East Troublesome fire. I think you folks read the newspaper and know that because of the weather, because of all the hard work that's been going on, I believe currently, at least this morning, the Cameron Peak fire, which is the biggest fire in Colorado history, is at about 92% or more containment. So I think we're on the tail end of that. Finally, human and economic health services is our last service area. And again, there, health and environment, that's our public health department. You can imagine that a lot of their attention in the last 8 months has been devoted to trying to navigate a very complex situation and a dangerous situation regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. We have human services that provides everything from access to food stamps, SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Medicaid, a variety of other things that help people deal with food insecurity, and also looking at self-sufficiency issues. Behavioral health, you know that the voters passed in 2018 the Behavioral Health Services Initiative. I believe I handed out the 2019 report if you're interested in taking a look at that. But with regard to behavioral health, we've about, in the first year when the tax dollars, dedicated tax dollars, 0.25% were coming in, we were able to disperse $1 million to 29 community-based organizations to be able to do behavioral health. In this year, 2020, it's not listed in the report, but that dollar amount is about 2.4 million. Related to that is, as part of the initiative, is to build a comprehensive behavioral health facility, which will also include a detox center. And the groundbreaking for that is indeed December also. It will be at the Trilby and Taft Hill site. So that's moving forward. Extension Office, Economic and Workforce Development. You can imagine, the normal things that they do to try to help folks find jobs and get the proper training and all of that. But they've been working very closely with the business community to try to navigate the challenges that, folks are facing with regard to, the coronavirus situation. I'll stop there. I think I have a half hour. Hopefully I haven't used it all up. And I don't know if this is boring for folks, but this is our community report. It is really important. A lot of times folks don't know what county government does. And, within Larimer County, the current population is about 357,000 people. There are 8 towns or municipalities. You know, I think it's 2,600 square miles. So it's one of the biggest counties. And, you know, I've been really honored and privileged and humbled to work with the 2 outgoing county commissioners, Steve Johnson and Tom Donnelly, have been, you know, serving the public for the last 12 years. Their term limited. There are 2 new folks coming in. In my view, this work is all about building relationships and building trust, not just with, you know, us, but certainly the folks that are here tonight. I'll stop and see if you have any questions. Oh, come on.
John, you did an awesome job, and your
Oh,
report is just
that's good.
great,
Okay.
John. I don't know if anybody out there has a question, they're welcome to ask too. I think you did a great job with it, and I think we're all fortunate to have such great leadership going on at Larimer County.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues. I'll just close by saying that, yeah, it's been a real honor for me to work with Steve Johnson and Tom Donnelly. You know, they've been very patient with me. This job, I'm sure you're figuring it out as town council members. It ain't easy. You can imagine magnifying that. You know, I don't know what the current population of Timnath is, but it is a complex job, and it's a really important job, and we're closer to the people. And so it's important for folks to engage and to understand what we do so we can, you know, try to be responsive to what the needs are and what the priorities are. But I want to close by saying that among all of the other things that are going on, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic is, if you look at the Larimer County data dashboard, larimer.org, you know, you can find it there. It's up on the top. You'll see that for a variety of reasons, just like the state, just like the country, you know, there's been quite a spike in the last 14 days and everything else. And that's troublesome. We've been moved a little bit on the dial, but we're trying really hard to work with the state to make sure that we're not doing blanket closures, you know, trying to strike a balance between protecting public health, safety, and welfare, and making sure that businesses can somehow get through this winter. So we will be adopting the 2021 budget. If anyone is interested in some light reading, this is the proposed budget. But December 18th, that's one of our charges. You know, we've been working on this all year. We did create a new online interactive tool. If you're interested, and maybe you could share that with the public, it's called Build Your Own Budget. So if you go to larimer.org/budget, it's a tool where folks can offer input on revenue and the expenditure side. So I'd really like to encourage people to do that. And especially if folks don't want their taxes to be increased, their property taxes, they could say that. But in the end, I imagine you have the same requirement. We have to have balanced budgets, and certainly the county does. But the budget will be adopted for 2021. We just set aside $9.2 million for funds out of our general fund reserve because we've been very fiscally prudent, but $9.2 million that's going to go for short-term and long-term recovery related to the fire. The budget's going to be adopted. That's important. And also the update process that we've gone through with the land use code. We will likely be adopting the first phase or the first 3 installments of the land use code by the end of the year. The current commissioners will have a chance to vote on that. And of course, that's really, really important in terms of how we interact in the unincorporated areas and certainly in the growth management areas. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thanks for listening. And I look forward to working with everyone as we go forward.
John, thanks so much. We appreciate it. I will echo one thing you said. I would have never thought this job was as complicated as it is until I got here.
Mr. Mayor, forgive me, but there's one more thing I wanted to mention that I think is a way for folks to engage, to participate. Besides this build your own budget thing, we're also doing it's a biannual, but it's going to go to annual, but it's our community survey. And if you go to larimer.org, I think it's /2020 community survey. It takes about, I did it the other day, a little bit of a bias, but it takes about 15 or 20 minutes. But it's really important. for folks to provide input on customer satisfaction kinds of issues, how much they know about what county does, but then also in terms of perceptions and priority needs, what do they think the county, how important is it for the county to be involved, for example, in affordable housing issues or childcare issues or those kinds of things. So the community survey, it'll be live till December 4th. Our goal is to get 5,000 people in the county to do it. And if you could spread the word, that would be really helpful. I'm definitely done now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. Question, should we have a link to that survey on our, I would think. Ashley, if you could get, and John, if you could connect her with somebody at the county, we'll put a link on our website for that survey so that they can go there and be aware of it. Because some might look there and not look on the Larimer County website. So we'd be happy to do that. You bet. And Ashley's sitting right behind you there. So and she could get a hold of you if you guys missed today. Awesome. Good job. All right, we're getting to business. Ordinance number 3 and ordinance or resolution number 58. I am going to have to recuse myself. My son owns a CPA firm which prepares a tax return for Mr. Turner. And although it's a minor number and a minor amount, I've always said, even if it appears to have a conflict of interest, I'll recuse myself. So I'm going to recuse myself for the discussion here. So Mayor Pro Tem Collins, would you take over and I'll come back when you're done.
Thank you, Mark. As some of you may remember, this was before the council a couple of months ago, and we had some good discussions back and forth with the residents of Tinmouth Ranch and with the developer. And they went back to the drawing board to see if they could work out some of those differences. It's being brought before the council again tonight. What we will do is how we will proceed is the staff is going to talk about it a little bit, then the developer will come up and add some comments, and then we'll take public comment, go back to the developer, and then the council will go ahead and entertain what they want to do. We ask that people, as far as public comment, keep them as short as possible. I think your agenda says 3 minutes. I'm not a stickler for that, but if you start to repeat yourself, of course, I'm going to say, I think we're starting to repeat ourselves here. So let's start off with the staff, Kevin.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to actually start this tonight, and this will be kind of a new thing going forward. I'm going to introduce the project and where we are. I'll print off one of these for you guys in the future, great. So you'll be able to see it. But at a high level, wanted to kind of show where we're at in the process for these and what's been done and what's yet to be done, so that you can understand and the public can understand where these things are. Where they're at in the process. And then a little bit in those lower areas, you can see a little description and what the public involvement and who's approving it, and a little bit about how it lines up with comp plan or land use code. So I'll print these off for you in the future, so you'll have them at your table. But the idea is this is kind of a tee up, and then Kevin will present the actual item. So this is the Tinmouth Ranch rezoning and sketch plan amendment. And as you see here, long ago, they went through an annexation and zoning process, and not too long ago, they had a comprehensive plan amendment. Now we're at the rezoning and sketch plan portion of the project. Yet to come is a preliminary plat and a final plat, and then ultimately development site plan and building permit, if all things move through the process appropriately, or as by the developer's wishes. So the rezoning, though, is an application that would align with the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan that was went through an amendment previously, this rezoning aligns with that. And then the major subdivision process is built up of a sketch plan, preliminary plat, final plat. that sketch plan is also being considered tonight. So those two items are on the agenda for discussion. And I think Kevin will be back in just a second to talk about that. I don't know. I kill a little bit more time. So the sketch plan process I will describe though is the sketch plan process though is a bubble diagram just showing land uses, density, and major circulation. The public involvement related with that is neighborhood meeting. It goes to a planning commission hearing and then the town council action. So that's the public, where the public can engage in that process. With that, Kevin, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Matt. So thank you, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. I will present both 8A and 8B together since they go hand in hand with each other. Just to give you kind of that brief location, we're talking about the Timoth Ranch subdivision, more kind of commonly known as the T-Rock part of Timoth Ranch, the western side of Schoolhouse and Club Drive, shown here in red. The first item, which is 8A, is the rezoning from community commercial CC and R2 and mixed use to R3, two-family and multifamily residential. And then R4, which is multifamily residential. The CC zoning district is actually going to increase from roughly 32 acres to 40 acres. The R4 will roughly be 25 acres. The R3 will be roughly 34 acres. And this is kind of a rough concept of what that would look like. It's showing over the zoning map amendment. I just threw some color on there to give some better context for you to see what that would look like. Within that is then the next item, 8B, which is the sketch plan amendment proposal. Mayor Pro Tem, as you mentioned, this was back to us on, this was back at the September 8th meeting, and you as council had directed the applicant to reduce the density and then add in single family residential along the south and the west portion of the site for buffering to the existing single family residences that are there. The applicant took some time, kind of went through a redesign for those areas that you had depicted and called out for, and they have come back with a new proposal. So the new proposal here is now for roughly 508 units, which is a reduction of 65 units from the 573 that was proposed back on September 8th. Of that 508, there are 27 single family detached lots, which are adjacent to the south and the southwest. As you can see on this for reference lotting diagram, they are the yellow squares on that south side and the southwest portion to the existing single family residences. This then overall gives an increase of the Timoth Ranch subdivision just 20 units from the approved 2006 master plan, which was for a total of 1,400 units. This change that they have gone with now comes back to being 1,420. So just that 20 unit increase. This will also, as you can see, include parks and trails. There's a central park along with that. And then there will be trails that will come along with that within those units at the sketch plan bubble plan diagram. Those aren't necessarily depicted yet, as those come at a future date within further process, but those will be a requirement. They've just kind of shown some of the general lotting layout and the parks for now at this point. With that, I will turn it over to the applicant for their brief presentation.
Thank you. My name is Jim Birdsall. I'm with TB Group. We're the project planner, and I have been working on this project for nearly 20 years now. With me tonight is John and Warren Turner, part of the ownership group and the developer, and Jason Sherrill with Landmark Homes, who's going to be building the predominance of the residential product. Thanks again for the opportunity to be back in front of you. I think Kevin and Matt did a nice job of summarizing the work that we've been working on here over the last month and a half in response to the comments that you guys shared with us and your request for revisions to the plan. So in my notes, I had 4 sort of primary requests from your council. You wanted us to make sure that there were no apartments. You wanted a reduction of at least half of the 85 additional units that we were proposing. You were asking for a single family buffer on the south. And then you were asking for some examples of the products that would be intended here. And so we took that to heart, and we feel like we've brought back to you a plan that does those 4 things. And in addition, I think Kevin mentioned already that we've reduced the number of units a little bit more than what was requested. And that's just really a reflection of the addition of the single family homes on the south, and then revising the plan to just make sure it works. So with that, so Kevin obviously already presented this to you. This is really a reference plan, but this is something that we like to do in the background when we do the sketch plan, bubble plan, just so that we know it works and that the spacing makes sense. But we did a lot of work on this plan to revise it to meet those 4 conditions. As Kevin mentioned, we've got the single family homes on the south helping buffer the existing neighborhood. But you can see that the core intent of the connectivity, the neighborhood walkability, the character of that commercial remains unchanged. So we really feel good about the plan. We think the heart of the plan still is intact, but we were able to incorporate the changes you requested. And we feel like we've made the plan consistent with your request. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions you might have. We did in your packet, I'll just quickly kind of flip to the product. I think this was in your packet. Yeah. So these obviously might change over time. You know, Landmark is wonderful about revising their architecture as they go into new projects to make it fit with that community and what they're trying to achieve. So I expect, as always, they will tweak these product types and make them better, even in the project as they go. But this is some examples of the different product types. They correlate to the sketch plan that I just showed. If you notice on the left-hand side, there's sort of a legend that shows the product types and where they would be located. That kind of gives you an idea of what direction we're headed. So with that.
Does anybody have questions for Jim? Go ahead, Brett.
Just to clarify, when you say some of these can change, these are examples of the types of products you're looking at putting in. You're not looking at a radical potential change on any of these. It would just be architectural tweaks, essentially.
Yep, great question. Yeah, I think this is very close to the intent, so it would be more architectural changes, enhancements as we go. You know, we've done a number of projects with Landmark, and they always modify their product and enhance the architecture as they learn more and you know, make their product better. So I think this is very close to what we would be intending.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question for you, or I guess a comment really. So I appreciate that you've lowered this density down to just 20 more now than what you were approved for back in 2010? 2006, so long before most of us were here. So I appreciate that you've made that and added that buffering down on the south end. Just another comment that I had before, I'm going to reiterate it again today. I think Landmark builds a great product. I've seen a lot of their products throughout the northern Colorado area, and all of it seems to be very high class, and appreciate that they would be, you know, putting in a nice product here that's going to match the character of the rest of that area if we approve this. So, thank you.
You bet.
Jim, I have a couple of questions for you. One, first, I want to thank you for putting this together and working with the staff and working with everybody to try to work this out. I know one of the issues that's been brought up is increased traffic in that. And I agree with that, but I don't know how to fix it other than to say, everybody that lives here, we're going to now lock the door and let nobody else in. That's not going to happen. One of my concerns on the sketch plan here is, and I can't see it because I know a simple pencil line is 30 feet kind of deal. Will there be sidewalks around these things?
Yeah, we didn't get to that level of detail, but yes, absolutely. There would be sidewalks. Let me flip back to. Yeah, so there would be sidewalks in the greenbelt areas. There'd be sidewalks to all of the front doors of the units. You know, this scale or this level of detail for this plan, we didn't get down into that level of detail of designing exactly where all the sidewalks go. But yes, there would be sidewalks throughout the project.
Another concern that I still have is where you're going to handle parking. Each of these units, it looks like they have like 2 parking spaces inside. I don't know if they're driveways. Will they park on the driveways, or if they have visitors come in that, where do the visitors park?
Yeah, so we will meet or exceed, and I would expect well exceed the town's requirements for parking. But there would be 2 spaces in the garage, 2 spaces in the driveway in front of the garage for every unit. So that's 4 for each unit. And then there would be guest parking within the project, and then there'd be on-street parking as well. So
Are you talking about like the cutouts like that we have in Harmony, where there's cutouts in given places where 5 or 6, 7 cars can park? Is that what?
Exactly. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yep.
Another one is sort of a pet peeve. I've been on the council for 2 years now, a little over 2 years. And before that, we keep hearing about a grocery store. And I think it's very misleading when, unless you know something I don't know, when on your sketch plan, you put King Soopers in. That's your proposed grocery store site. We don't have, as far as I know, an arrangement with King Soopers to come in there right now.
Yep. Very fair observation. We should have just said grocery store or retail.
Yeah.
I think there's a very good chance that may not be a grocery store. You know, I think we talked last time that, you know, in this post-COVID, well, I guess we're not post-COVID, but in this COVID world, hoping soon to be post-COVID, I think the grocery world is going to change. And I think the idea of the historic or traditional large grocery store that we're used to as a King Soopers is maybe not going to exist. So whether that's a grocery store or something else, I think that's a very fair observation.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we need to make sure the people in Timnath know. There's not a grocery store lined up to go in Timnath at this point. I think a lot of us would like to see one go in, and this might be the ideal spot, but at this point, it's more of down the road, and I think we need more roofs. Let me ask you, you mentioned no apartments. Would you have any issues if we pass this tonight or move this thing, if we amend it to say that if you decide to put in apartments, it has to come back for council approval?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talked about that last time as well. There is an apartment project on the east side of what we call the Peanut Park, but there's no plans for an apartment project within this area. So I think that's a very fair request, and we'd be more than fine with that.
Yeah, my last one is that my understanding is we have a height limit. And I think at our last meeting, you talked about there might be elevators in some of these buildings or something. So it sort of set off a red light. You're not talking about 4-story buildings.
No, we would comply with your height requirements.
And I think the ones across the way here are probably the maximum height, aren't they? So that's good.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that some of the product that Landmark does is what's called an elevator serve condominium or loft. And that elevator is a really important component of that lifestyle, where someone that either doesn't want to or really can't manage stairs can live on a 2nd or 3rd floor because it's served by an elevator. And so it doesn't mean a 4-story building. It just means a type of lifestyle. Yep.
I appreciate it.
You bet.
And again, thank you for bringing this forward.
I have one more question as I'm looking through my notes regarding the commercial space, the expansion of the commercial space. So I know that there was another 8 acres going in on that. But if I remember correctly from your presentation last time, some of that had to do with the event lawn that you're putting in and just the reconfiguration of that to be not so strip mall-ish, if I remember right. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, we do think that the overall square footage will probably go up a little bit, but really it's to do exactly what you're saying, which is to make that commercial feel a little bit different than what it would have been under the previous plan, which is sort of the traditional big box in the back, pads in the front, and a sea of parking in the middle. Where you can see in this plan, that event lawn, that's surrounded by, retail and restaurant opportunities, we think could really be something really dynamic. And then that really connects the neighborhood to it as well. So that's really an important part of this whole plan is that green area that can be enlivened by restaurants and retail that are around it. We talked, I think, last time about the idea that might be an open container area, and we'd obviously have to work with you on it, but where you could grab a drink and go sit on a nice bench and your kids could throw the Frisbee and you're in a park, but you're surrounded by restaurants and retail, and it just could be a really interesting, neat opportunity, I think, for the community. To have some retail opportunities that are not, sort of traditional suburban shopping center kind of stuff that isn't really walkable. It's just you park and you go to your store and then you leave. This, to me, is a place where you can really hang out. It's walkable. It creates sort of a culture and a character that we think is pretty interesting. So.
Yeah, I know I've seen things like that down in the Broomfield area with that kind of feel, and I think it's very successful down there, and I imagine it would be here as well.
I absolutely think so, right? I mean, I think everyone in Timnath would love to have a great restaurant, in this sort of a setting where you can sit on a patio and look at something other than a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one comment about, I guess one's a question. So some of these mention specifically that it's attached garages, and based on some of the pictures, is it correct that they all would have attached and none of them would have detached garages? Is that the plan right now?
I might invite Jason with Landmark.
I was kind of looking at the pictures and what it said, and some said attached, others looked like it probably was, but I was just kind of curious as to that. And then before you step down, one other thing that what Rick brought up made me think of it. So I know it has elevator served in at least one of those. And I know this is probably a little bit premature in saying this, but I would like you to consider to actually making some of them accessible, like handicap accessible. Because I know a lot of times even patio homes and ranches have steps going up into the front door. And I would love for us to have something that would be handicap accessible for those in wheelchairs and walkers and people who can't even manage that 1 or 2 steps. I would just like to throw that out there, especially if there's an elevator option. Obviously, that's a second floor, and I would hope that there would be no stairs there, but whether it's like ramps or something like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think that's a good question for him too. So.
Okay, Jason, yeah.
Jason Chair with Landmark Homes. Address your question. So first with that handicap, so that product that Jim is referring to that has an elevator, we've done it in multiple locations. Probably one that's most familiar is right at Highland Meadows, a product called Portofino Flats. So it's a 2-story building. Actually, we've done 3-story buildings with an elevator service, and every unit is accessible. So yeah, not only is there an elevator, but it all is handicap accessible. So it's great for as a product for a first-time homeowner, but also for someone that needs some additional services and accessibility. So it's a very flexible product. There was another question.
The garage is attached?
Yep. So if you don't mind going back to that site plan, I would do it, but there we go. No, the rendering. I'm out. There you go. So actually what it does reveal is that we do have a lot of townhome product in here. And so we want to provide a nice healthy mix of townhome product. Some of it is called a brownstone, some of it is a row house. They come with different levels of fit and finish and kind of features. But one product, if you kind of zoom in to the kind of right below the Central Park, go down a little bit, you see that there's a townhome product with a detached garage.
Okay.
It's a product we did in Morningside Village, which is just next to Fossil Ridge High School, and it's a great product. So what that does is, even though the garage is attached, it's a 2-car garage. It creates a little private yard between the unit and the garage. So it was a very popular product here, just recently sold out, and so it helps provide a little variety of attached products along with the mix of the other condo product and then the single family that Jim referenced already. So, you know, what this plan represents is a great healthy mix of a different variety of townhome product, condo product, single ranch plan type product, 2-story product, different price points. So really a healthy mix and a lot of architectural diversity kind of going up and down the corridors. You know, one thing I'd highlight is that when you look at this plan is everything on the rights of way or the parks is front architecture. So it's the front elevation that is facing parks and facing all the right of way. The big green corridor leading to the Central Park, those are all porches and sidewalks and front elevations, which is a key element in this plan where we're trying to tuck the cars back behind and put all the people out onto the public spaces in the right of way.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jason.
Can I just have one comment as
Go
well?
ahead.
I just wanted to also kind of reiterate something that Rick said. Whether it's a sketch plan or another iteration or whatever, you mentioned one of your goals with this sketch plan is to have it be walkable. So yeah, just when it comes to the sidewalks, the street widths, the parking, that's something I would hope to see as we get into platting, as well as you mentioned doing studies about traffic impacts as we get into preliminary platting. And I'm thinking particularly about the commercial area. It's a pretty significant commercial development. We have a commercial parking lot here that is quite infamous with the town in terms of its challenges with the traffic. So I would just like to make sure we're doing some due diligence on that to make sure we avoid creating problems there. So.
Thank you for the heads up. We're aware of the issues. Obviously, one of your colleagues brought up traffic tonight. There was an email, I think, from a member of the public that brought up a concern about traffic as well. I'm confident that staff will make sure that we have an updated traffic study and probably multiple studies as we go through this project. Because it's going to have an impact, right? If we add additional square footage of commercial in particular, and depending on what type of commercial, that could have a huge impact on traffic. So we recognize it's a critical issue and we'll be reviewing it sort of all the way through the process. Yeah, and then the walkability, obviously it's important to us that's a big driver to the change in the plan that we undertook, is connecting both this neighborhood, but also the neighborhood that exists to the south to the commercial, where you're not having to walk on a street. You can walk right through the heart of this neighborhood. And as Jason mentioned, you've got the front architecture, front doors, front porches, fronting onto that green belt that's pretty substantial width-wise, and a beautiful walk from the neighborhood right up to the commercial. So we think that central green belt, Central Park, and that walk is going to be fantastic. I think, you're going to see people on their front porches. You're going to see kids playing in the park. You're going to see, people walking their dogs and walking to the commercial. We just think it's a really unique feature that is going to be loved. I think it's going to add value to the neighborhood. It'll add value to those units that front onto it. It's going to be very unique and I think valued.
And just thanks for providing this diagram. I know we're not voting on this level of detail, but it's helpful to for both the public and the council to be able to understand what you're going for with the sketch plan. So thank you for this diagram.
Another point I'd like to bring up about the walkability. One of our staff's, critical path things is we are constantly hounding these guys about connections, sidewalk, pedestrian connections and all that. So we're on top of that very much so. So as it goes into the process, you'll see those things start to show up. One thing I wanted to point out is along the very west edge of this is the T-Rock ditch, and there's a community trail being put in by this project, as well as the town. We're trying to facilitate that. So there'll be a pretty major community corridor that runs along the very western edge of this that also connects to all these projects and these properties and up to the commercial and up to Harmony Road and beyond. So walkability is one of the key factors that we're looking at as well.
Matt, will then with that trail connection, will we'll be able to use the underpass then to get to the other side?
Exactly right.
That's already been in place.
Yep, that's the connection to the underpass right there. Yeah.
Okay. And then for the people who don't know, there's already an existing trail underneath Harmony, close to where Mill Brothers is, to be able to connect the old town area with the portions of town south of Harmony.
Thank you. Let's start the public comment. And Melissa, if we have a list of people that would like to speak.
Let's see, I have one person signed up. I don't know if a couple people came in afterwards, if they were.
We'll ask them.
But right now I have Connor Duffy.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thanks for hearing me for the second time here. I won't rehash what we went over at the last meeting. I'd like to say, some of the designs, they do look good. One of the areas that I do have concern is on that south portion of town. There is still, and I know I said for reference and maybe for the future approval of the sketch plan and the final filings to make sure that those single family homes do provide the buffer all the way around. If you look on there where the legend is right now, homes still stretch along the railroad tracks there. So some people in that area will look out at some of those other types of projects. I still have opposition to this rezoning, basically on kind of three things. Number one is we've always discussed this as just this area of rezoning, but it fits into the larger plan of the development of Timnath. I don't think it aligns very well with some of the work that has been done in the past 5, 6, 7 years. There was a big push just 3 years ago for the development of downtown Timnath. Their restaurants, farmers markets, event lawns. I mean, it seems to me we're going to be having a lot of events all over town, right? I don't think that this one is warranted just because of the fact that it is so far away from the other things and the marquee projects that this council has basically gone forward with and wanted to do. Along those lines, if you look at the zoning plans that were created a long time ago and revised under the comprehensive plan, you see kind of more density going towards the marquee projects that we as a community kind of put together in the comprehensive plan. I think that should stay. We talk about housing product, it's out there. Trail sides, Timnath landings, they all have condos, townhomes, things of that nature. So that product is on the market. Along those lines as well is the one product that I don't see vast swaths of it on there is basically the single family home with a backyard, like is there in West Village, Summerfield Estates. That product isn't out there. And I'm just wondering, and one of the reasons why I think we should keep the zoning the same way is we need to have that product on the market as well. Last but not least, I think that I mentioned it briefly at the last meeting is if we look at that development plans from all the way from basically the Costco to Schoolhouse Road, I mean, one after another, we are going to have strip mall after strip mall after strip mall on the Harmony corridor. I'm not so sure that all of them will be able to sustain kind of restaurants, event centers, farmers markets and whatnot. So I ask you to think about what this plan and this rezoning does for larger Timnath and not just this one area of Timnath Ranch. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you also rescheduling this meeting for this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Do we have anybody else in the public that would like to speak? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Thank you. Okay, let's have some discussion. Does the developer want to add anything?
Again, I'm happy to address any questions you might have, but I don't really have much to add.
Okay, staff. I have a question for the staff. If which one of the ordinances would we need to amend it to say that if the developer decides to put in apartments, it would have to come back before the council?
That would be the resolution for the sketch plan. So resolution 58 or 53, I believe it is.
So it looks like
58, yeah, resolution 58 would be the condition. You would add that in as a condition of approval, that note get added to the sketch plan.
So we would address both the ordinance and the resolution as a separate vote.
Correct.
Any discussion on, let's start with ordinance number 3, or you can speak on either one of them, Brad.
Yeah, so I guess first I'll note I'll note the efforts of the applicant to meet the feedback of the council. We did ask the applicant to add a buffer of single family homes. We got 27 homes there on that south side. I would have been okay if that knob had been turned just a little further, but at the same time, I feel it difficult to haggle over 30 homes, 28 homes, 27 homes. So I do consider that a good faith effort to meet the council, the feedback from the council. I'm also I find it easier to accept the argument that was offered last time about a density transfer from the northeast side when our total number of units are staying about the same. I think that also speaks to concerns of residents about increased traffic in the area, increase numbers of people in the area. It's going to be effectively the same amount of people, whether it's this plan or the previously approved plan. Kevin, I sent you a slide, if you could pull that up. There was something I at least wanted to kind of show the council here as well, comparing the two plans. One thing I like about the proposed plan is that, our comprehensive plan talks about wanting to increase the open space and the walkability. And if you compare the already approved plan on the left with the proposed plan on the right, I think this proposed plan actually helps the town achieve a better walkable area of town. I'm not saying I'd want all of Timnath to be this type of product, but if I were to try to go for a walk or run or bike ride around the neighborhood, I think you'd have a much easier time with the proposed plan. And I know some of the concerns have been brought up about traffic. Thanks, Kevin. That's all I need on that. Some of the concerns with traffic, both in the residential area and the commercial area. This proposed plan, I think it helps address some of the concerns in and out of the commercial area. In the old plan, you only have that access on Harmony and then right at the roundabout there on Club Drive, whereas this plan adds 3 more access points on the south side, which I think helps give more options to get in and out of the parking lot. And I'm hopeful will help give us a foundation to work with to avoid a traffic issue at this parking lot. I still want to see numbers and studies and homework there, but when I hear the concerns of residents when they're talking about traffic related concerns or feeling like people are on top of each other or too many people in the public amenities, the open spaces, this area comes with a lot of open space that is usable to the public. I think this particular plan provides some benefits to residents that actually address those concerns. Again, I'm not saying I'd want all of Timnath Ranch or all of Timnath to have this type of product. I do think we want to have plenty of single family detached homes like the homes, like the sketch plan we just approved in Saratoga Falls. Is a good example of 250 homes that we just approved on that sketch plan a couple weeks ago or a month ago. I will also note, just not to go on too much of a tangent, but about a month ago, I brought an idea out to the council about the land use code and how any kind of higher density product should yield an increase in open space. And again, you compare the open space of this proposal with the old proposal, and I think it's a really good illustration of the concept that I'm kind of looking to achieve, and that I'm working with staff to, so just so people can feel like when there is a higher density product that comes in the neighborhood, there is some there's something that they get out of it. It's not just we're trying to pile more people into an area. So again, just to note some numbers, the developer reduced the amount of lots in the Northwest by 10%, the higher density lots rather from greater than 10% in that Northwest. We're still reducing the number of apartment units in the Northeast by about 25%. So so we're also lessening the density on the Northeast side by approving the sketch plan, as opposed to having a section of the Timnath Ranch that is apartments that would be much more dense. I see a lot of positives. It's not the same plan as the old plan, and I recognize that, but I do think it does achieve a lot of the goals and address some of the concerns that residents have with overall growth in Timnath. And regarding commercial development in Timnath and the vision there, I think Harmony Road is just the place that makes the most sense. And I think it fits in with what most people I've heard for years express about what they want to see in Timnath. So those are my thoughts.
Thank Brett.
I think I've said pretty much what I want to do with the applicant.
Lisa.
I would agree, and I think Brett just covered a lot of it too. So I think some of the concerns that we tend to hear most about are traffic. We hear concerns about the schools, and I think in the packet, it covered that piece about staff have been working with the school district to address any concerns there, and they've given us their numbers. I know we've had people say that they don't trust those numbers, but they've been doing that a long time related to the schools. So I think we have to kind of trust their numbers on that. And then the traffic piece, if you do look at it all together, that the whole vision of that neighborhood that was put in place, 14 years ago, did address all the, they looked at what the traffic was going to be like when the neighborhood was completed. And I think this is a good compromise from what we had a couple months ago. And I agree with the green space and adding that buffer of single family is a good addition.
Just a couple of comments. I second what Brett had indicated, but I'd also remind the folks, a lot like Brett, I looked at what was originally planned, and it was just a full thing of single family housing. And I also know I'm not a developer, and I don't think the town should be a developer. We should be here to assist developers, but we have to remember that this board or this chess game was set up long before I got here. Zoning was put in. People like Mr. Turner decided to spend resources to buy the land, to develop it. And people like Mr. Connor back there, we have ideas on how best to do things but we've got to play with the game that's been set in front of us. And when I weigh what was there originally and weigh what we looked at 2 months ago or a month and a half ago and look at this one, I think it's a pretty good product that's going out there. That doesn't mean that we just sit back and not try to improve things as we go along. I know that this developer and several of the people, Landmark and others, if they see a better way, they're looking just like we're looking. I look at my son and the kids in his generation, 30, 40, a lot of those people, they don't want a house with a backyard. Some of them do, but some of them just want a turnkey because they want to be out skiing on the weekend and not having any yard work and that. So the developer's the one that's always chasing what's hot and what's not hot. So with that said, I think we've come up with a pretty good compromise here. And I would entertain a motion to move ordinance number 3.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Now I'd move ordinance resolution 58, and I would like to move it with a condition that language be put into that resolution that says if the developer any time down the road decides to move those to apartments, that they would have to come in for council approval.
So moved.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
So moved as amended.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Unanimous. Thank you.
And then I'll just note for the council, I mean, I noticed a little bit of social media discussion on this topic. I started seeing a couple posts going up Thursday night, another one go up today on Nextdoor. The tone of those discussions was very different than what I saw back in February and back in September. And I think a lot of the community felt appeased by the compromise as well. Just wanted to add that.
If we can find the mayor now.
I'll go snag him.
Good job, everybody. Presentation of the 2021 draft budget. Lisa.
Good evening. I have a short presentation for you today, just primarily because this is the third or fourth time that you're looking at these numbers. We did a deep dive on October 13th. We have made some adjustments and I communicated those in my communication, but the net adjustment from October 13th to today is a positive increase to fund balance of a $653,000. Of that, we increased restricted of 1.2 and a decrease in unrestricted fund balance of 634. We did do a detailed presentation and we recorded it for the resident budget workshop prior to this meeting. So it's already up on the website along with the presentation. That went into a lot more detail for residents. So just to give you a high level on the budget timeline, we've been at this since June, preparing different iterations and different versions. We've had 3 work sessions with council, and right now we're at the final stretch. We have the first reading of the budget tonight. We'll have one more department meeting scheduled next week where we'll go over again our 2020 estimates and our 2021. Primarily, some changes that might occur is capital projects that might get pushed that were in 2020 that will now be in 2021. And then we will come with a final budget on December 8th for budget adoption and appropriation. So to detail the fund balance for 2021, the beginning fund balance estimated 22 million, projected revenue 31 million. Projected expenditures, 33.3 million, and that includes capital. Estimated end of year fund balance of 19.9 million. Of that, 6 million is restricted. That's primarily impact fees, in lieu fees, and those designated for grants. We have a 50% working reserve of 6.2 million, and then that leaves the unreserved fund balance at the end of 2021 at 7.4 million. Revenue is primarily made up of intergovernmental transfers from the TDA. Again, we record all the capital expenditures and transfer loan proceeds back from the TDA to the town, and then the incremental sales tax that is not needed to pay the debt service. Taxes, other license fees and charges. We're assuming assessed values will increase by 7.5%, and that was the assessment that we got from Larimer County. No change to the mill levy. We're projecting a 10% sales tax increase, but no change to the sales tax rates. Building permit revenue is projected to increase by 11%, and that's based on build-out projections. And this budget includes no finance borrowings for capital and no sale of town-owned properties. The next slide shows tax revenue. So the town has 6.4 million in tax revenue. 3 million of that is sales tax, 2.2 from use tax, 700,000 in motor vehicle, and then property taxes, 288,000, with other tax, 76,000. Total expenditures, assumptions here are the 7 new full-time equivalent employees that we've talked about in previous meetings. An increase in equipment and fleet for those new FTEs. And then again, the capital is based on the 5-year capital improvement plan that was presented to you. For capital outlay of the 20 million, 11.9 million is for roads and utilities. 5.2 million is for buildings, primarily the beginning of the new public safety building. 1.8 million in Parks and Rec, our annual certificates of participation payment, community vision projects, and then stormwater. The TDA budget assumes a 10% increase in sales tax and a 7% increase in assessed values. And we're making the assumption based on the capital projects that will spend down all of the loan proceeds in 2021. One item to note here is that the debt service equals 6.9 million, and that property tax increment makes up the total debt service. So the sales tax would then get swept back to the town per the IGA. And I'm available for any questions that you have.
Could whoever's running the slides, could you get to the first slide, Brian? I'll tell you, there. That one. Ms. Pink and Mr. Black, I agree with a lot of the comments that you made earlier today. And the reason we didn't touch property tax this year is for 2 big reasons. One is we made the decision as a council to go from a 25% working capital reserve to a 50% working capital reserve. That took us about $2.5 million this year. Great. I think it was great fiscal management. I was proud of the board. I'm proud of Lisa to get a budget together, and Wes, that would do that. So that was the first one. The second, right when we were getting ready to finalize the budget, we found out that and Don, you can help me with anything here that I say misspeak, but that we might lose our frontage road that goes on the back door of Costco. And if we lose that, we're going to have to put another road in that's to match that of about $4 million. That's in this budget. So we are able to do 2 things: get an extra $3 million into reserve and an extra $4 million that we weren't planning on. And those sort of hit us. And so I'm hoping next year, quite frankly, that we all can come back and maybe give you a property tax reduction. But this year we got hit twice, or we made a decision, one, which I think was a great fiscal decision, and then we got hit with a surprise. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. No, that's why we need people to talk and stuff. And Lisa, awesome job. Your first budget and stuff. It's, as I said before, I couldn't be more pleased.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
I think this goes in the category I'm probably losing my marbles. Which isn't unusual. This packet that went out a year ago or 2 years ago had property taxes at 345,000. I'm just curious how we dropped it to 288. And I looked back on your budget sheets inside the packet. It said the last year's was 219 or something like that. So it's sort of interesting.
What might happen is the change in the tax increment financing that gets reduced. So if that tax increment increases, then the net that the town gets may decrease, even though the mill levy may not change. And I can go back and look at that, but that's likely what happened.
Yeah, might have got a decrease, not even known. Because that means more of an assessment went to commercial property.
More of the assessment
And
went
that'll
to
be
the,
changing
to
after
the-
this
to the
election.
TDA.
I think after this election, they move the burden more towards spread it out between. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that. But thank you.
Okay.
Do you by chance know off the top of your head how much property tax revenue the town collects between the town and the TDA together? I know that's a little bit of a detailed question, but
I can tell you pretty quickly here. I think, yeah. Close to 8 million.
$8 million.
Mhm.
Okay. So if the town were to remove the sales tax, that would be $8 million? Or
You said property tax or sales tax?
sorry, the property tax. If the town were to remove property tax, that would be $8 million.
Well, the way it works, and Robert, I might need your help a little bit on this, is the 6.68 mills is on the town portion, and it does not include the TDA. The TDA is based on the assessed values for the overlapping entities and their mill levy.
Okay.
So it's really 288,
Okay.
which is in one of her slides.
TDA portion goes away.
Right.
Yeah,
But is there a town section that gets sent to the TDA and then back?
It's a whole lot more than 288.
Okay.
It's the town's portion of the increment
Right.
that.
So the
that you
town's
are-
paying something to the TDA with the property tax that then gets sent back to us. So it's more than 288. And that's why I was just curious what the number was. I know when I had my initial orientations, I was told that was probably about $1 million, but I wasn't sure if I remembered correctly. So just be something to check.
It's several million.
Several million. Okay. So if the town were
But
to remove the
that
property.
counts commercial. That counts the commercial. That's not the residential.
Sure, it includes commercial, but if there'd be some significant issues with dropping the property tax rate, not the least of which is that you'd be forever ratcheted down because you don't have the Tabor authorization to raise it back up. So I think it'd take a fair amount of discussion by the council.
Right. And then that was something I just want to make sure we keep in mind if we were going to discuss the mill levy, that it is more than 280,000. It's actually a significant percentage of our budget because of the TDA that kind of obscures that picture a little bit. So.
Under the
Yes, the mill levy will stay the same.
It's been kept at the same
Several. Yeah, I bet it's longer than that.
Yeah, as long as I've been here, it has not raised since 2012.
Okay.
Absolutely, but our mills are the same. It's 688. Or 668.
And then last question I had, we had the resident budget workshop earlier today. Did we have participation?
We had one.
We had one. I got a one-on-one instruction session on my end.
But we recorded it and it's already up on the website. And I
Awesome.
know that one person already asked about it, Ashley said, so,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Resolution number 67, a resolution directing staff to proceed with a site for the police department facility. Have we talked about this already or not? Just once. Do you feel compelled to talk, Brian?
I don't. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Anybody have any questions on it?
I just wanted to ask about the fuel site and the Metro District levy. And there was a mention on the slides of a possibility there of us having to, I scared him. Okay. I did ask staff about this earlier. My understanding was it was going to be $10,000, $20,000 a year, something like that.
Let's see. So let's do two things. One is this is too much information for me to digest in the next 5 minutes. So, I don't want to really discuss this because there's no way in heck I'm going to be able to get up to speed with it.
2 pages are important. The rest is just background information.
Okay. I think, but here's the important thing is we had a committee. They came up with a recommendation. I assume they knew all about this and made the decision based on whatever taxes, Metro District, whatever was going on with the decision. Is that a correct statement or an incorrect one?
We had a philosophical discussion about it, but not the kind of harder numbers that are included in this packet here, which came basically out of a discussion that I had with Councilmember Hanson late last week.
Okay.
So I can take 1 minute.
Great. No, I don't care how long. I just didn't want to repeat something we've already done.
And what I'm just looking for is just to make sure we understand the cost of one side over the other is all. And,
Sure. So on
It
the
may be
first,
fine at that cost, but yeah, I just want to make sure we acknowledge what it is. So.
the first page, the highlighted areas in the memo are from the purchase and sale agreement for the fuel property. They outline the requirement for or the ability for the district to be there, and then what the resolution would be if a tax exempt user were to use that property. So as if we put the police station there, that's a tax exempt user. It doesn't generate any revenue based on the Metro District mill levies assessed to that. So there's some language in here, the second highlighted area, that talks about how to resolve that with them. So, and then the second page, the tables on there kind of, we wanted to just kind of give you an estimate what we thought this looked at. So we took the town center building as the example. So that's currently for 2019, that was assessed at $2.45 million. We don't have an assessment for the future police building. So what we did was we took kind of a percentage of our construction costs and a percentage of the total project costs and looked at how those related to the assessed value. We applied those percentages to the police services building. And then we came up with an actual value of between 3.6 and 3.4 million, and assessed value of between 1.06 and 1.07 million. And then when you apply the 18 mils for debt service and operations, you get between $18,000 and $19,000 per year is what that would be. Now the real decision, not the real decision, but the real language in the agreement say we really just need to negotiate with Hartford what that's going to be. Some of the operations mill levy might not apply to this site because we don't really want a common snow plowing in our secured police parking lot. We don't really want common maintenance of our landscaping at the police station. So there's some discussion to be had there. There's a discussion to be had about how the assessed value has arrived at this. So there's a lot of variables that need to be flushed out. But this is kind of, for what we know today, this is kind of the approximation that we can give.
And the way we see this playing out, I mean, this is essentially a fraction of a % of our public safety budget that would essentially have to go into maintenance of the facility there. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm, Aaron and Rick, I'm going to ask you guys, is this information something we got three choices here. One, send it back to the committee and discuss it. Two, you think it's not enough and that we go forward with it, or what, some third alternative?
No, I'm looking at you too, Rick, so that we can talk about this together. But this was discussed as part of the whole plan. We knew that this was going to be a component with the fuel site. And we spent a pretty good meeting or two on this, talking about the different sites, getting input from all of the folks, the police chief, the engineers, the architects, everybody in there. And it seemed with that and the public outreach that we also did, that the leaning was towards the fuel site. So the recommendation of Rick and I is to bring this forward. And even seeing this information now in harder numbers, before it was a little more conceptual, we knew there would be some numbers. We figured it would be somewhere in this general range. I still feel confident in our recommendation. How about you, Rick?
I do too. The chessboard, once again, was set down when we bought this land, and whoever was going to develop it, whether a commercial site or a town police station, would be part of that MET district. Do I like it? No, but that's the facts, and it's still the best site and best opportunity we've got to put a first-class police station in. So I support it.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve resolution, if I can read the number, 67.
Second.
All discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
9A, purchasing policy draft. Lisa?
Thank you. This is a policy that we've talked about for a few months now, bringing before you. And it was last updated in 2012. We made some changes to the purchasing policy, and you have a red line copy and then a cleaner version in your council packet. I looked at probably 11 municipalities' purchasing policies just to make sure our authorization limits were in line with what they had, what their bid threshold was, and also what their term for bids were. And I incorporated that into the policy based on similar towns of this size. So some key points that we're making to this policy, or propose making, is to increase the department director authorization from 5,000 to 10,000. Allow directors to delegate purchasing authority for up to 5,000. Increase town manager authorization from 25 to 50,000. And then remove some of the specific purchases that required town manager approval. And then require formal bidding process or waiver for purchases over 50,000. And then set the bid frequency to a minimum of every 5 years. So that's how I derived at this draft, and I'll leave it up for questions, comments.
Any comments?
Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable. Can you give me an example where a $50,000 purchase, what's an example other than a vehicle, a patrol car or something?
Vehicles, some of our consulting services. I have included professional services examples as one of your items in here, possibly some public works work that gets done on resurfacing.
Okay. I would like to see that held at 25,000 authorization.
Let's just discuss that for a minute.
I can see the need for it being a little higher than 25. I think 50 is that's a big jump. I'd be happy to offer maybe a compromise number like 35 or 40, because we are seeing some of the asphalt stuff comes in and it's 30 grand or something like that. And I think as prices continue to rise, there's going to be, it just makes sense without having to go fully to these discussions to raise that up a little bit. But I'm not sold on 50. I'd be happy with something less than that in between.
Lisa?
I don't have a strong feeling
One way or the other.
on this one. And I mean, we approve our expenditure stuff anyway, but I'm.
Brett, do you have anything?
I'm fine with something in the 35 to 40 range. And if it seems like we're getting too many need for waivers, we can always adjust it at that point.
Okay, so it sounds like 35, 40. Somebody want to
35
take a
sounds
number?
good.
What?
35 sounds good.
35?
I'm good with 35.
Okay, so Lisa, could you change that to 35?
So can I clarify, is it 35 for town manager approval or 35 for public bid? Or
Town,
both?
town manager approval, which also means
Okay.
town bids too. And then Lisa, on 3, Roman numeral 3.2, it says the town, which I think is
The town council.
not descriptive enough. It should say the town council
Mhm.
may waive. So if you could add the word council there, please. Any,
I'll just,
Brett, do you have something?
You said, I guess my question is about number 6 there, set bid frequency to a minimum every 5 years. Is this just mostly a number we pulled from what other towns are doing? Is there a justification,
Yeah.
rationale?
Every one that I looked at, the lowest was 4. A lot of them were 5, and then a lot were just silent. So they don't have a requirement
Okay.
as far as bid frequency. I felt like it was important to include one in the past. Other county governments that I've worked at, 5 years was what was used.
Okay.
You're good with that? Okay. Great job. Great job. Only couple little suggestions, I think.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. That was just a draft for our discussion. And I threw stuff over my, let me see here.
Right here, we're on 9.
It's 9B, I think. Thanks, Brett. Okay, discussion for a search firm for recruitment of the town attorney. I think contract tax in there, anything. Wes, do you have anything you want to say?
No, just real quick, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Lake or Hanson to make some comments, but we've been meeting as a group, our HR, Jen Volmer, and then Councilman Hanson and Lake, and then Susan and I all kind of started taking in the RFPs per your direction. And then we did a variety of screening, and I think Lisa was going to take the lead on describing the process, but we narrowed the list down and have a recommendation for you this evening.
Yes, so we initially had the full list was narrowed down. We ended up doing interviews for our top 2. And from there, I think we all kind of agreed unanimously on our top choice on that one. It was pretty clear that I think we're in a unique situation in the fact that we're looking for kind of 2 searches, but yet we only want one result from those 2 searches. And I think that we were able to narrow it down to someone we thought would be able to do that unique search in the best way.
Great.
I'll just add that, I mean, this is the firm we are using for our town manager search. And for me, I evaluated them independently for this particular, and I thought their experience was even more relevant and strong for this particular search. So it was a short and quick unanimous discussion after our interviews that this was our recommendation.
Great. Do we vote on this, or is that just a discussion item?
No, sir, we do need you to vote on this.
Vote
so
on
we can
the
authorize the
contract.
Yes.
I will say before we vote is I thought it was cool that Rick and I independently came up with that, and Lisa and Brett both came up with that. So that must mean we either are all really good or all not.
I'm going to go with good.
Yeah, I like your idea, Lisa.
And Mayor, and Council, just let you know too, if the council decides to proceed tonight, the recruiter is slated to be here. I think it's on Tuesday to start that process. So he wants to move pretty quick. He did outline a 14-week process, but believes he can do it sooner than that, depending on the variables that are at stake.
Great. Lisa, do you want to make a motion?
So
Accept
moved.
the contract.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't have the wording in front of me.
That's okay.
Resolution approving independent contractor agreement for recruitment services.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Discussion of regional improvement mill levy.
Thank you, Mayor. As a quick background for the members of the public that weren't at the last meeting, that there were several items and proposed changes to the model service plan that had been recommended by the Metro District Committee that Councilmember Hanson had headed up. One of the items was the regional improvement mill levy, and there were some questions from council members with a request for some additional background and a brief presentation on that. So we helped Councilmember Hanson with slideshow, and I'll just go, if you'd like, I'll just go quickly through it. The regional improvement mill levy concept was introduced as part of an update to the model service plan in 2019. It applies only to newly organized metropolitan districts and districts seeking a service plan amendment. Currently, it only applies to the South Timnath Metropolitan District. It's included in the maximum aggregate mill levy for any district that's subject to it. In the under the regional improvement mill levy, there is a ratcheting up of mills that are transferred from that metro district to the town for use in funding regional improvements that benefit the taxpayers of the district. It starts as 1 mill for the first 20 years, then 5 mills for years 20 through 40, and then 10 mills for years 40 through dissolution. The ad hoc committee, there are a few pages in the slideshow that include quotes from the committee, but I think it's fair to just generally summarize and note that while there was some recognition from the committee that there's a revenue generating potential here, there was general unease and some questions from the committee, and it's centered in two primary concepts. One being equitability and whether it was fair to collect this revenue stream from one district or a district here and a district there versus a more unified or uniform revenue generating structure. And then the other primary concern was transparency. There were committee members that viewed this as an end around, a Tabor end around. Specifically, there were a few that noted that objection to the structure. So with that, the committee, they didn't feel comfortable making specific recommendations. They thought that was in the council's purview to discuss and make an ultimate determination there. But they did want to note to the council that there was some general unease amongst committee members. So, Councilor Hanson.
Thanks, Robert. So yeah, I mean, I think and in the slides that Robert and I worked together on, I think it kind of laid out the committee's general feelings and some of our main points about it. Robert, if you don't mind, could you comment on your opinion on the process that the committee followed and the soundness or unsoundness, if you felt this was a productive and educated discussion?
Oh, absolutely. I think what's important for the council's consideration is that this is really a policy determination. There's no question about the legality of the structure, and there's no question about whether it would be legal to remove the structure, of course. But the committee, in my personal view, I was impressed with the level of understanding that the committee brought to the discussions, and there was quite a bit of back and forth, and there was input from resident board members on the committee. There was input from the development community, and there was a fair amount of what I thought was pretty sophisticated point and counterpoint. And at the end of it, it looked to me like the overwhelming consensus was that the structure, however well intentioned, just on balance didn't seem like the right structure to the committee.
Thanks, Robert. So with that, I mean, I guess I'll just open up to council first in terms of if there's any feeling that we should try to keep it, or if the council's in general agreement that this levy should be removed. And if that's the case, then I think the discussion would move towards how exactly that looks. So.
You're looking at me. So, this is a burr under my saddle. I don't think the town should be a part of a Met district kind of thing. So I would like it removed.
I had mentioned earlier to Robert that if this is something that we do end up removing, I would like us to look at the one metro district that does currently have it in there, and see what could be done to try to make sure that all of them are the same. So I did mention that to Robert. I don't know if he has anything to add on that, but he did give some feedback of what that could potentially look like to work with the one current metro district that has it in there, just to kind of make some consistency across the board.
Sure, happy to comment on that. So Timnath Ranch Metropolitan District number 1, or I'm sorry, South Timnath Metropolitan District number 1 is the one and only district that's currently subject to the regional improvement mill levy. To undo that structure would require a service plan amendment, which would need to be initiated by the Metro District. As a reminder to the council, that when the town typically when they review applications for either developments or for Metro District service plans, there's an agreement pursuant to which the town gets reimbursed for its consultant costs in reviewing and processing the application. If the town can always waive that right to reimbursement for those costs. So if the town wanted to facilitate that kind of process, I mean, the developer or the district would still need to bring the application forward. It would need to bear its own costs. But if the town wanted to facilitate undoing the structure for that one district, the town could facilitate it by waiving the town's costs. Councilor Lake had asked me what I thought the consultant budget would be for that, and it's it's dependent on how much back and forth there is with the applicant team, but I think it would be less than 5,000, and I would hope that it would be a margin less than that, but it depends some on how much back and forth there is.
Do you have any comments to that,
Yeah,
Brett?
I had another question. Aren't we set up, the way it's set up now is if a new Met district's created, the town automatically piggybacks onto it?
That's right. I mean, I don't want to speak for
And
Councilor Hanson.
if one of the current Met districts come in and want to change something, I think there was some kind of language in there that said if they were going to make X kind of changes, the town would piggyback onto it.
Right. I don't want to speak for Councilor Hanson, but I think what's being recommended here is that the entire regional improvement mill levy structure be pulled out of the model.
No, I agree. I just want to make sure we're aware of the fact that this thing will snowball as we go forward if more Met districts are created. And I had the same problem. It looks like it's a hidden tax on people.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Lisa. I would like to get all the metro districts on the same playing field on that. One proposal I would make for us to consider in terms of what this exactly looks like if we were to remove it, it sounds like we are going to remove it, is perhaps what we consider is lowering the aggregate cap by the regional improvement mill levy amount so that for the developers, for the metro district, this is a revenue neutral change. It only is affecting the town. So that for instead of having a 50 mil cap for years 1 through 10, it'd be 49. From 10 to 20, it'd be 45. And then from years 20 to 40, it'd be 40. And this would effectively be a tax decrease for residents the longer their districts have been in operation and they have more of a tax base. I think it would be workable from the developer side, and I think it would be desirable from the resident side as well. So that would be how I propose getting rid of that.
So I get the feeling that what we're talking about is a direction to give back to Robert and staff of where to go with the regional TIF.
Yes, they would need to rewrite the service plan with these amendments, and then they bring that to us for a vote. So to use their time wisely, I want to make sure that we're giving them direction we're all going to approve.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Well, I know when this was put in, it had the support of the council at that time, but I don't see any problem in removing this from the language. And if we do so, then I do think it's only fair to have the one district that's in there to be able to pull that off. And I also don't think they should have to bear the cost of that, especially if we're talking about less than $5,000. I think that the town should be able to help offset that cost for them with this change.
So, Robert, do you have enough direction to go forward and bring us back a resolution?
I do.
Okay.
The one other question I had
go
though
ahead.
is what is our thought about the reducing of this mill levy for that metro district? What are your thoughts on that, Robert?
The only thing that I would note is that would create two different groups of metro districts. One, metro districts that have been approved before this change versus those that have been approved after, and it'd be two different structures. There's nothing illegal about that, but it would create two different playing fields.
Can I?
Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
So I know one of the reasons that we did this model service plan agreement last time around, well, one of the last times around, have been a couple times, but was to try to create a level playing field for everybody so that there wasn't advantages given to these people over these people and those over there. So I guess I would feel like we should try to, even though I think I like your idea on that, I think I would like to try to keep that on a level playing field for all people, instead of now the new people, then they have these different restrictions that the old ones did not have.
One of the reasons I'd like to see it gone is we've added another level of accounting costs and bureaucracy to it. And so I don't like the idea of reducing at all. But I do like the idea of let's get rid of the regional TIF and go forward. I mean, are we all good with that? Because I think this is really a direction to staff that will then come back. So that's good. And I don't know if anybody in your group needs to understand that. Okay. So Robert, if you could work that up, and I don't know, when do you think you could be back to the council with that?
We could be back, I think, yet this year.
Okay, so let's say December 15th.
I think we could make it before then. I just want to make sure I'm clear on the direction on. So we're going to bring back a version that no longer includes the regional mill levy concept. Councilor Hanson had recommended also a corresponding decrease. There sounds like there was not the entire council was on board with that. Councilor Hanson, are you okay with it coming back without that decrease?
Yeah, if that's the feeling of the council, I'll yield on that. I think the issue of fairness is a good point. I mean, we do have a little bit of an uneven playing field as it is. I know my district is a lower cap than some others. I think it's a little bit older district. But I like the idea of doing what we can to make it across the board. You know, this neighborhood's paying a similar amount as this neighborhood. And
Yes, a great question. I want to make sure I understand.
okay.
So my understanding is we're getting rid of the regional TIF, and whatever the Metro District fees are, that's between the Metro District and the homeowner.
We would leave the aggregate cap at 50 mils instead of lowering it by the corresponding previous regional improvement mill levy amounts. Just 50 mils across the board would be the cap. And that would be, in my understanding, that's most of the Metro districts in Timoth. There's a handful of exceptions, but most of them would be pretty close to that.
That's right. I think yours is the only one that isn't that cap because it's the oldest and it was before the model. That's right.
Okay.
So I know that I think you and I are in agreement here, but as far as that goes.
Yeah,
but-
no, they're all with us.
Okay, you're good with not decreasing too. Okay.
Yes, I'm fine with the
So
50.
so we've already been working on the other revisions per the guidance from the council last time. So I think we could have this on the agenda at your next meeting.
December 2nd?
Yes.
Really? Because you got Thanksgiving in there. I'm just making sure. If you could do it, great. I just don't want you to have to work overtime.
Would it be all right with the council if we have our weekly staff meeting tomorrow to talk about scheduling? Would it be all right with the council if we just brought it back as soon as it's available?
It is with me. Yeah, everybody says yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Absolutely. Any other comments? Do I have a vote to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Okay.
No.